Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for another installment of our Before the Snap series. If this is your first time tuning in, well, what are you going to hear? What we're going to do is we're going to talk a lot about the ins and outs of what it means to work in and around the game of football, specifically the National Football League. We're going to focus on one career, how our special guest got to his career, and some of the cool things he gets to do on a day-to-day basis with his job. And if you tuned us before, obviously you know you're in store for another excellent program. My name is Jake Gray. I'm the Youth Education and Leadership Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And I am going to be moderating the program today along with some other special guests with our Before the Snap guest today, Mr. Baker Koppelman. And we'll get to him in a second and give you his background, his bio before we bring him on here for the program. But a little bit about us at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame to honor the greatest of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty, all of which made our Hall of Famers great football players and great businessmen, but it made them great people as well. It makes me a great employee, makes you a great student, and one day going to make you a great employee of an organization as well. Before we do bring Baker on here, I have some few thank yous I'd like to pass out. First and foremost, I want to thank all the educators that sent this out to their students. I know we got a lot of registrations that came in with some pretty good questions, so we're going to hear from Nathan here later in the program with some of those questions. Also to thank all the students who are tuned in here today. Without you guys tuning in, just a bunch of people talking in a Zoom room. So we appreciate you all watching the program on our YouTube live stream today. This program's here for you. It's an opportunity for you not only to learn about what it takes to have a job in and around the game of football and a career, but also it's an opportunity to network. The opportunity for you to network with our special guest is going to be there today. His LinkedIn link is going to be in the chat, so make sure you pay attention to that. This gives you the opportunity. Click on that link, connect with him, send him a message, let you know you watched him on Before the Snap, and start your networking journey. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, even at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or our special guest today. If you are tuned in and you didn't pre-register or you didn't submit a question and you come up with one or you have a question you'd like to ask today for the program, go ahead and put it in the live chat on YouTube. Like we said, Nathan's there watching that live chat to see what great questions we have come through our students. If you don't have a question, it's totally okay. Let us know where you're watching from. We want to see how many schools we have tuned in today. So if you're watching this right now, go ahead and throw your name and the school you go to in our chat, live chat there. And we want to see how many great universities and colleges all over the country we have tuned in today. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome our special guest today, Mr. Baker Koppelman, who has been with the Ravens since 1996 when they became an NFL franchise. He oversees the team's PSL, season ticket and hospitality sales, ticket operations, distribution, customer service, club-level concierge service, and upper-level programming, and he assists with attracting events to M&T Bank Stadium. In relation to his roles, Koppelman contributes to internal committees tasked with reviewing and improving overall fan experience. He's a graduate at St. Paul's School in Baltimore and was inducted into their Athletic Hall of Fame in 2016 for his contributions as a team manager in football, wrestling, and basketball, as also a 4-year member of the baseball team. He's also a board member of the Baltimore Chapter American Heart Association, and his wife, Reba, is actually the Ravens Senior Director of Finance, so pretty cool when you get to go to work with your wife every day. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome Baker Koppelman to Before the Snap.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity here. The more I hear you guys talk about this, I think about, I was in the shoes way back when, and, I've constantly thought about, how I can help people with whether it be via advice or whatever to try to help them get into the industry because it does have its nuances. And, I do something similar to this with some other schools in the area. And I always get really great feedback on it. I love being able to help people. So it's great.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you here today. Cannot wait to hear all the expertise you have as somebody who's been in the field, in the world of sports. I won't say for a very long time, but for a long time. We are so excited to have you here on the program today. So first question we always ask is kind of that 10,000 foot view. Can you just give us an overview kind of on what your day-to-day looks like? I know we mentioned a lot of the things you work with there, but, excluding, special events and game days and things like that, what are your main job responsibilities and things you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think it's evolved over time. I mean, I started as kind of more of a doer, I think, and I enjoy the doing part, but my role really has evolved more into a strategic one. I've fortunately had some really, really good people working for me. And it's gotten to the point now where they can run this thing on their own. And I'm kind of there just to sort of guide them a little bit, make some decisions when decisions need to be made, but just really wind them up and let them go. And that's really what I really enjoy the most is watching these guys just take the ball, run with it, and do great things and just run a good show.
I think you make a good point there. It's all about the people you bring in, the team you have around you. And anybody watching this program now is either about to graduate college or in college trying to find what they want to do. So, as somebody who's hiring those people, what is something you look for when you're bringing a new team member on? Is it leadership? Is it the ability to take a task and run with it? Is it the experience on a resume? What are some of those things you look for when you're bringing new people onto your team?
I think the first thing I'm looking for in a resume perspective is are they showing the true desire to want to do it? And what I mean by that is seeing a pattern of involvement, whether it be through internships or volunteered work or whatever, that just shows that this is what they want to do. They've taken advantage of time. It might be personal time in some cases to get the experience that they need to get to then position themselves to succeed. So that's probably the first thing in terms of like onboarding people. It really boils down to who we think really would fit well with our group. It's a very close-knit group. And I think also it's people that I feel like will surprise me. They'll do things that you don't expect. Down like once the light bulb goes off, so to speak, like they're gonna do things that try to surprise you in a good way.
I'm sure not way back in 1996, you were that person that was getting their foot in the door and that entry level employee. Can you talk a little bit about your journey to where you are now with your job and some of the different things that you have seen that may have changed along your time with the Ravens organization, but some of those constants that no matter when it is, has always stayed the same with you when you're looking at your job and things you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Well, then the quick sort of journey is that I fortunately knew in high school that I wanted to work in sports. So it allowed me the opportunity to then forge a path for myself. And I went to Guilford College specifically for sport management. They had internships that I was able to utilize. The big break I got to a degree was when I was in high school. I did a 2-week internship with the Orioles, which was my sort of dream scenario at the time. And I got to meet some people there in that 2-week time frame that then went back to later and ended up working summer jobs at the Orioles. The other big lucky thing I got that happened to me in that time frame was the opening of Oriole Park. So Oriole Park, brand new stadium being built in the city of Baltimore, and they needed people, they needed help, and the time was just right. Just graduated from college, and there I was with a brand new stadium coming and lots of work to do. So the Orioles was where I started, and then I ended up at the San Diego Padres. Apologize, my voice is screwy today. I went to the San Diego Padres for a year and a half. And then when the Browns moved to Baltimore, I moved to Baltimore back to Baltimore with the new Ravens.
Awesome. It's a cool journey because a lot of people in sports, they want to work for their favorite team. They want to go to their favorite college and work there. And it is about the journey sometimes. I have been fortunate, and I know Nathan and as well as Katie, who you guys will see here in a little bit. We're very fortunate. Kind of all of our internships and everything we've done here has kind of been at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we've gotten to know this place pretty well, but there is a key and there is a positive about getting out and seeing different other organizations. You literally went cross country. I don't think it could be any more explained better than that. From Baltimore to San Diego and back. And I'm sure you took a lot of great experiences from everything that you've been involved in. And obviously it speaks to that. You start with the Ravens when they become an expansion team and you've been there ever since. So I could ask questions all day. But we're not here to hear my questions. We got some awesome students who submitted some questions earlier. So we're going to throw it to Nathan Martin, the Youth Education and Leadership Coordinator here at the Hall of Fame for some of our student questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. And Baker, thanks for being a part of the program. Really excited and already appreciate hearing your story and just how students hopefully can relate to that, putting themselves in your shoes. But you mentioned a little bit about resumes and bringing certain members on board. And we had a question actually from a student that was submitted in advance. This is from a student named Wesley. And Wesley's curious, do you, when you're looking at that stack of resumes, have a preferred format? It's so easy to go on Microsoft and see, there's these resume templates they can use. Do you have a preferred format? What are you looking for? Does it need to be 1 page, 2 pages? I guess general resume advice for our students that are trying to get that first internship or entry-level job.
Yeah, I love that question, actually. So first of all, I'm a one-page guy. And the other thing I really look for is how much effort was put into making it look good. We all know that these kids are at a point in their life where they've done as much as they can do, but they haven't done a lot, So to me, part of what you're selling with your resume is just the effort you're putting into the resume and how you want it to look and how you want it to represent you versus just the information. The information is important, but there's an element of show me who you are in this resume. Like, what are you about? Like, what's important to you? And I think people that present a really clean, good-looking resume to me are telling me that they care a little bit more than somebody else, potentially.
I really like how you're being honest. A lot of times those intern applicants or those entry level, there's not as much experience there. So the resume carries a lot of weight, and the work that you put into the resume can really help yourself separate yourself from the rest of the candidates. And I think that's good for the students to consider, because I know when I was in their shoes, you're sitting there and you're like, I don't really have much to put on here, right? So it's how do you fill that out and make it quality, so that the hiring folks can look at that and see the type of person you are. We got an interesting question here. This is from Joseph, and Joseph says, I work as an usher at Levi Stadium. What are some ways to find a mentor if my direct supervisors don't really care or look at this role as a way to invest in professional and personal growth? So other ways that maybe Joseph could find a mentor in the sports industry.
Good question. I mean, if you don't feel like the people that you're surrounded by are doing that for you, I think the consideration would be to find something else that would provide that. I think, the first thing to do is to get your foot in the door however you can. And I think it sounds like there's an opportunity there that has happened, but then maybe it's to try to take the next step to maneuver yourself. Like, where do you want to be ultimately? I think that's one thing I would do a little bit differently in my career potentially was I felt like once I was in, I had to stay locked and loaded on that particular, being in ticketing, for example. I feel like looking back on it, if I could have made some steps to do something else if I wanted to. I think I've seen people who've been able to maneuver from different departments just by virtue of making people aware that they have that interest. And I think the idea is to try to find wherever or whoever those people could be that would be good mentors and would potentially help you get to a place where you want to be versus one maybe you don't want to be.
I think that's great advice. And the challenging part can be that it can take a little bit of work. You got to kind of put yourself out there, maybe be in that awkward state, that uncomfortable state. But you'll find more times than not, the students that are listening, that when you do that, it does pay off and it's worth it. And I think that's kind of just piggybacking off what you were, saying there.
I think you want to be noticed. It doesn't have to be noticed by the immediate supervisors. I mean, trust me, there are people who know people that you don't even realize. Like I know people that they don't know that I know them. And it's by virtue of hearing about them or seeing them in action. So really it's making the best of the opportunity you have and be really good at it. Even if you're not 100% happy with it, be really good at it. And you don't know what can happen from there.
Yeah, no doubt. Last question I got from students, then we'll throw it back to Jake for a little bit. But I do want to encourage the students that are watching live right now, go ahead and submit questions on YouTube. We'll use those questions. Let us know where you're watching from, which university you attend or college. But the last question I got right now, this is from a student named Isabel. And just wants that, again, high level advice, because we've talked about getting your foot in the door. How would you advise a student on getting their foot in the door after they've graduated? They maybe missed out on undergrad, internship, volunteer opportunities. Now they're graduated. They're trying to make ends meet, pay rent, whatever that may be. How do they get their foot in the door?
That's a really hard scenario. I've talked to a lot of kids that with that scenario, and it's tough. And I think what I might suggest in that scenario is that you focus on something, some element of industry, whatever it is, like whatever your major is, whatever expertise that you might have from college, go into that area, but then try to work your way back towards sports. So, the thing that's people forget sometimes is that, sports team really has all the same functions as a everyday business.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from we play football games on Sunday and things like that. So, we need expertise in accounting and finance and IT and analytics. And so you can always take whatever you are good at and run with it outside of sports, but then try to maneuver your way back into sports by getting yourself involved in things that might be sport related, wherever you can make those connections, if that makes sense. But the other way I would say is to maybe do a part-time job in the sports world, or something where you're getting that you're meeting people and you're getting that experience, and you just don't know where it'll go from there. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I like the way that you emphasized or highlighted to our students that, football teams need accountants. They need people that work in finance. They need IT, all the normal functions of a business. Football teams need that. Baseball teams, basketball teams, they need that. So I think that's a good reminder for our students. But like I said, we're going to send it back to Jake. I'll keep looking at the student questions as they come in and sorting through what we already have. But for now, Jake, it's all you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks to all those students who pre-submitted their questions. And as Nathan said, if you're a student watching right now and you've got a question, I've got the YouTube chat pulled up like Nathan does. I don't see any in yet. So if you get yours in, there's a pretty good chance we're going to ask it here on the program. Baker talked a lot about, kind of a lot of overall student stuff that can apply to a lot of people. But I really want to focus in on some of the things, you've experienced in your profession. Looking at your career, you worked in two big sports. You worked in baseball, you worked in football. Granted, you've been in football a lot longer than you were in baseball, but what are some of the things that you learned while working in the sport of baseball, that you were able to apply to the sport of football? Or it doesn't matter really what sport it is. It's all about, what kind of job you're doing. And, the job is what translates to the new, sport, not so much how the sports differ from each other.
I think every circumstance is a little bit different. Like when I was at the Orioles Park had just opened and we were selling out every night. I mean, we were selling out. It was literally like who are we going to help get tickets and who we can't help get tickets. You know what I mean? On the flip side, I go to San Diego and it's the exact opposite. Like they had just been sold. They had just traded all their players away. The Chargers had just been in the Super Bowl. And literally they were hated. Like everyone hated the Padres. And one of my favorite stories from them was our PR guy saying, how much are we paying our fans to come to our games this year? And he was talking about like the promotional schedule and things like that. So, you went from literally the complete opposite situation where you're trying to convince people to come to games versus a situation where people are dying to come to games. Translate that over to football. I think you take from both of those. Because now football is a big event sport. Like every game is a big event. Baseball will have, 5 to 10 big events a year that can translate. Opening day is probably the closest translation. But then there's going to be those times in football where you need to sell and you need to get creative. And you can draw from the baseball experience on that too, because, we had to get creative with ticket offers and targeted groups and things like that. And so I think you learn a little bit from all of them, but at the end of the day, it's really kind of a finite sort of circumstance that you're in at that moment in time and where your franchise is and what you're trying to accomplish and where you might go in the future.
Well, Baker, that's a great answer. And I feel we're going to come back to that because I have a question popping in mind about 162 versus now 17 games. So we'll come back to that for sure. But, Part of what we do here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you heard there in our mission, it's to honor the greatest of the game, all of our Hall of Famers and anybody truly who's had an impact on the game of football. But it's also about preserving its history. At our core, we are a museum. We tell the story of football from when it first started in the late 1800s all the way up to we got artifacts in from week 2 of the NFL season. So, we're telling the full story of the game of professional football. So anytime we do a program like this, we like to highlight something in our museum. So with that being said, I got a great teammate of mine, Katie. She's out in our Super Bowl gallery in front of some unique artifacts and's got a pretty cool question for you. So I'm going to throw it to Katie, who's out in our museum right now. Katie, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thanks, Jake. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lamar Hunt Super Bowl Gallery here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This is the space that we tell the story of the NFL's biggest game each year. Whether it's the Packers winning Super Bowls 1 and 2, or in more recent years, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs winning 3 of the 4 past championships, this is a spot inside the museum to learn more about these moments. Now, Baker, we have some space and information dedicated to the Super Bowls that you've been a part of with the Ravens in 2001 and in 2013. But I actually want to ask you a question related to these artifacts. Behind me are some unique artifacts from Super Bowl 58 when Usher performed during the Apple Music halftime show, where there were 129.3 million people tuning in. We have an autographed football from Usher right here. And the Hall of Fame's first ever pair of roller skates from one of the background performers on the show, which you can see right here. So Baker, in your role, you've had a hand in M&T Bank Stadium hosting some big time performers such as Beyonce, Billy Joel, Jay-Z, Justin Timberlake, just to name a few. Can you talk to us a little bit about what goes into the stadium when hosting some of these major acts outside of football?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And being in Baltimore, we have a lot of competition around us between Washington and Philly. And Baltimore is not always the first choice to be, the first stop on the tour. We might be the second stop on the tour. So in terms of maneuvering, and we also have the Orioles right next door. So we have to maneuver the idea of baseball games happening that we need to be, conscious of, and then creating these spots where we can have a concert, but also keep in mind our field, because our field is the most critical thing that we have in the stadium. So we don't have a lot of windows to host events, but we try to make the most of what we can. So we would typically have like 1 or 2 concerts a year. We've had soccer matches, we've had lacrosse, we've had college football, and it's really just boils down to staying in touch with people who can help facilitate those things, and just making them aware that you're interested and treating them great. When they come, we treat them great, and they remember that, and they want to come back.
Thanks, Baker. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite event that you've been a part of?
I think the first Army Navy was really special.
Very cool.
Once you see an Army Navy game, it's a really special event.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate your insight on that. Jake, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And Baker, thanks for that insight. You actually stole what I was going to ask. I was going to ask about Army Navy. I know it's moved away from your stadium here this year, but I do want to ask, it's always, it's on a bucket list being a football fan and a sports fan. You watch in December every year, and it's packed, absolutely packed. But it's a football game. It's Army Navy. There's the whole military piece of that, but what is it to kind of, after the ball kicks off, to kind of maybe step out on the concourse or look out into the stadium when it's going on, and to see, the magnitude of a game like that?
Well, I think the thing to think about is and it goes back to really any sports event, is how meaningful is it to the people that are there. And that game is as meaningful as it gets to everybody in that stadium. Those, especially the students, that's their Super Bowl day, and they just go crazy and they have the best time no matter. I think the first game we had, both teams were winless, and it was one of the best games I ever saw. And even and all the people that are not students that are there have some connections to those academies, and it's so meaningful to all of them that it creates this incredible environment where people are just having a great time. there's a great rivalry that goes on, obviously, but it's all in fun. And at the end of the day, we're all together, but it really is a special environment for an event like
Yeah.
that.
Always want to sing second, right?
Yeah.
I want to, bounce back to some of the other stuff we were talking about, mainly focus on, 162 games in the baseball season versus 17 now in the NFL season.
Yeah.
But it's not just 17 games because you're doing so many other different events. So we're gonna look at a normal football season. Is it just you got 17 games, but divide that in half because you're only playing half of them at home. Let's say it's not a home game. What are some of the things you and your team are working on when the Ravens may be on a 2 or 3 game, away when they're the visiting team, they're out traveling the country? What are some of the things you're working on in your department, getting ready for once they come back to Baltimore?
Well, really enough, the first thing is that we have tickets on the road. So we are dealing with the road games. And we have to deal with our players, our coaches. So that is an ongoing thing that we deal with on a week-to-week basis. I think in terms of other departments, I mean, in sales, obviously, we want to see, like, are there things that we still need to sell for certain games? We're starting to add new products, new premium products to our fold, and it's create a scenario where we've got more things to sell. So we'd be focusing on that. Depending on the time of the year, we could be preparing for playoffs. We could be preparing for renewals. The whole thing's a cycle. It's a 365-day cycle. And you just kind of, like, whatever point in time of the year is kind of what drives what you're doing at that particular time. It's always something I always tell our interns is just, figure out what's important now and then be good at that. And then it'll all kind of go from there. So yeah, we trust me, we keep ourselves busy. And the one comment I'll make related to baseball versus football is, with baseball, because there's a game every night, once the game's over, it's kind of over. You kind of do your reporting and you move on, you go to the next one. Whereas with football, everything lingers for like a week. Everything's a week long. Whether you had a good game or bad game, you're talking about it. You're dealing with reporting. You're dealing with some repercussions, stuff that might have happened during the game in the stadium. Stuff lingers that you don't really see as much in baseball.
Yeah, it's that quick turnaround mindset. And that's, you talk about that in your department. That's true for any department, whether it's the team, if it's, if you're a baseball player, you got to forget the game that just happened because you might have one, you might have a doubleheader the next day. And you got to play 2 games. Football, you have at least 5 to 7 days, before you got to play another one. Looking at the game of football itself, and somebody who's been involved now, as an athlete and somebody who's worked in sports for as long as you have, what are some of those life lessons you see the game of football teach those who play it, coach it, work in it, are fans? What are those life lessons you've seen and been able to take away from the game of football that you may have even applied to your own work life or even your personal life outside of what you do with the Ravens?
Yeah, I think you hear the players and coaches talk about it a lot, but it's a team game. I mean, you can't win individually in football, and everybody has to do their part. Whether no matter who you are. And one of the things I really enjoyed, I worked for Art Modell in the move to Baltimore, and before he sold the team. And one of the things I most appreciated about the Modell family was that they made a point to say that everybody contributes. It doesn't matter what your job is. You could be a receptionist, you could be a janitor, you could be whatever, answering telephones. If you don't do your job well, it could hurt us down the road. Like you're not tackling people in the field, but you're impacting how our fans think, for example. So I think really football and most sports can say this, but football in particular is you can't win unless everybody's doing their job. And it's the true team game that exists out there.
Yeah, I think you hit a good point there. It doesn't matter who you are. You do your job, to quote, a very rival coach of yours probably throughout the years, Bill Belichick.
Right.
You do your job and, the whole team's going to succeed. And that doesn't just mean if you're the backup center. That means, like you said, if you're the janitor, if you're the equipment guy, if you're mom and dad at home, if you're a teacher, if you're the entry-level sales intern for wherever you might, you got to do your job. And if you do your job, that allows others around you to succeed. So I think that's a very great point.
One thing I'll add to that too is that one of the mantras I had early in my career was when dealing with player tickets, for example, you never wanted a player thinking about tickets. Like, don't ever create don't make that a distraction. And so that's one way for us to contribute to the team. Don't let the players be worried about tickets. So that's the kind of thing you can adapt.
And I'm sure you get all kinds of requests day in and day out from players and coaches and everything. I got one more question I want to ask, kind of a fun one, and then we'll throw it back to Nathan for some of our student questions before we wrap up. I can say this as working at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I've got to do some really, really cool things for my job, things that people may just dream of being able to do one day, or places to go, or events to be a part of. Looking back on your career, and we referenced some Super Bowls here already, so I think that's probably where your answer is going to go. But um, what is that moment, that game that you remember from your career, where when you called a career and you're sitting in the lazy boy at home, and you may have a granddaughter or grandson ask you, what was the coolest thing you ever got to do? So up to this point, what would that moment be for you?
That's a really good question. It's hard for me to pinpoint. I mean, it's easy to say Super Bowl victories. I don't know. Weirdly enough, the thing that comes to me is not really what you're looking for, but I really enjoy seeing fans react to the team. And one of my favorite things when I don't travel with the team anymore. I did for about 15, 20 years. But when we were on the road and we were winning a game, I'd go down to the tunnel and I'd watch the players come off the field. And there'd always be a pack of fans there that were, had traveled, and they couldn't be more excited. And they're just see how much it means to them that we won. And that's the kind of thing that I really take away from what I do is seeing how people react to what I do and how important it is to them and how meaningful. And it's kind of why we do it. It's why we do it. You can certainly fill in the blanks with lots of great events and cool things I've done, but that's the part that always hits me. I mean, watching Ray Lewis come out of the tunnel back in that era, there was nothing like that. Nothing like that. The visiting team was watching him do it. It was incredible.
Yeah, I would get up and do it right now, but I would make a fool of myself trying to do it right now. So with that, I think that was great. I think, obviously, we've talked to so many people over the last 5 years with this program, and people who have been on teams that won Super Bowls. That's like the easy, absolutely no doubt answer. But I think you really put a good spin on it there. And, it is all about the fans. And for somebody in sales, you really have to take that into account. So I'm going to throw it back to Nathan here. We got a few more student questions before we wrap up. So Nathan, take it away.
Yeah, Baker, I know that Jake said he wouldn't do it because he didn't want to mess it up, but you've seen it up close, live in person. So if you want to give us a demonstration of Ray Lewis when he was being introduced, feel free to do that before we wrap up today. I do have some more questions, though, from our students. This is from a student named Roman from Illinois State University. And I think it's interesting considering your position. And Roman's curious, how do you balance the importance of driving and generating revenue with your ticket sales versus like you need to make sure you maintain a positive atmosphere and experience for the fans? Like, how do you balance that? How do you marry those two things together?
That's a great question because it's a constant back and forth in terms of that. I mean, I feel like the Ravens, I've been fortunate in that for most of the time that I've been here, we haven't gotten overly focused on revenue. I mean, revenue is obviously critical, but we tended to worry about let's do the right thing and let's do things well, and the revenue kind of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think as we've gotten further along and in this day and age, there's a lot more pressure on revenue, and we are trying to marry the two in the sense of like we have a stadium renovation coming right now, and we're starting to build new opportunities, new products, new clubs and things like that will help us build more revenue. But your point is right, and then we've got to be conscious of not pricing out our fans and making sure that they're still enjoying their experience with us versus feeling like we're just trying to squeeze every dollar out of them. So I think we still lean towards doing the right thing first, but we're going to do it in a way where we're providing really good options for elevating that experience to take it to the next level kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely sounds like it's a balancing act. You're kind of tipping the scale one way and tipping it back the other way.
You got to be careful. You can't go too far one way or the other, you know?
Yeah, just going back and forth with that. But I really appreciate your insight and your answer on that. This one's interesting. I have no idea where you're going to go with this, but this is a good student question. Aaron, a student, wanted to know, how is AI being implemented in your work with people around the office throughout the NFL? What are you seeing with that?
That's a good question too. So we currently don't have any AI specifically in place. I think our digital people might, in terms of our website.
Mhm.
We're literally just carving a deal out together with an AI company. And I think what AI has been used for in sales is trying to generate leads. And we're going to take a different tact with it. We're going to actually use it with our renewals and our service. And it's going to be something very different and new. Even the company we're working with said that nobody's taken it this direction before. So we're thinking that it could really help us in terms of retention, communications between fans and us. So we're gonna see how it goes, but that's where we're going with it right now.
Yeah, you guys could be like trailblazers, blazing the path for all.
I'm hoping we will be,
Yeah, for all the
I'm
other
hoping we
ticket
will be.
sales places across the country. I mean, in all sports and just concerts, all that stuff. So that's really cool. Because it's one of those things that I know some people you get nervous talking about, but it's like it's all around us, like it's there. So
Yeah.
you got to figure out how to make it a good tool to help us out.
Well, and the big thing with AI is it's all about what you put into it. So you've got to be really, really detailed and conscious about how you build it so that it feels very seamless.
Hmm. Yeah. So last question I have from our students, and I really appreciate your time and your insight and everything that you've had for us today, and hopefully the students feel the same way. This question comes from Max, a student at Simpson College, and it's interesting. It might make you think. Max wants to know, what did you least expect when you started working in sports that has actually ended up being a positive throughout your career working in sports?
Wow. What did I least expect that turned out to be a positive? I don't know. I mean, probably a simple answer would be, I've had interns work for me who have said, I was shocked at how fans were, like that they were had taken it to that next level. Like it's like how passionate fans are and how hard they can push things when they're not happy.
Mm.
And I think it's sort of I guess my answer would be sort of managing how fans interact with you in terms of like they can be very passionate in a positive way,
Hmm.
passionate in a really negative way.
Yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, you can make it all go positive, but the negative stuff you've got to really deal with. And it's difficult stuff. And we're not always in the yes business. We'd like to be in the yes business, but we're not 100% in the yes business all the time. So you really kind of have to make people understand why you've made a decision or why things are the way they are, and try to work with them to come up with solutions. But I don't know if that's really the best answer I would give you, but that's what comes to mind. It's like just people are interesting. I mean, you can never underestimate how people will respond to things.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I hear when you're answering that is, the fans are passionate. You want the fans to be passionate. You want
Right.
them to love your team and love your organization and support your team. And I mean, and where you're sitting, you want them to spend money and buy tickets and have a great experience when they go to the game. But maybe the thing that you didn't expect was that passion could bleed over to when they're not happy.
Right.
And how do you manage that? And what I love and hopefully would encourage our students there is there is a way, and I mean, it's a skill and it probably comes with time, that you can redirect that passion back to the positive, where it ends up being, an overall good experience. Not always going to be able to say yes, but you can, massage that and handle that situation so that everyone leaves and does have a positive interaction, even if they're not maybe getting exactly what they were hoping. But again, really appreciate your insight, your advice, your experience, and being able to come on here and coach up Jake and myself and all the
Yeah.
students. Jake and I always joke we learn stuff doing these programs. So just
Yeah.
thank you again for your time, Baker. I know Jake's got some things he'll wrap up with, but Thank you on behalf of myself and the students.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it. Thanks all the students.
Yes, thanks for those questions, students. Nathan, thank you for that. Baker, just a few more questions. Got one I wanted to ask that I thought of while looking through some stuff here, and then we got some fun stuff to wrap up before we finish today. Stereotypical, your freshman year class, you walk in, your sports professor goes, "Do you want to work in sports? Well, you better start in sales." So as somebody who works in sales, is that stereotype true? And if it is or isn't, can you explain a little bit about maybe it's why it's more in depth than if you want to get into sports, you better start in sales?
Well, I think it's the best opportunity to get in, for one. I think it's also a place where you can prove yourself. It's a level playing field to a degree in sales. You can come in and if you're good, you're going to make your mark. And it's hard to find people that are good at sales. So when they are, they can rise to the top quickly. So I think that's a big one. What was the second part of your question?
Is it true? Is that the best way to get into sports?
I think it is because it's where the need exists the most typically. So I think it's a good place to start even if you don't want to be in sales, go in and make the most of it. The one thing I will say about working in sales or really in service as well is you will learn more about people and life doing that job for a year or two, and you can adapt it to anything you do moving forward. There's no question about that. And in fact, it goes back to our Modell again. He was a believer that everyone should work in ticketing for like a year because you really learn the business and you learn about people. And those are two really important things to learn at a time that's really important in your life,
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at that.
Yep.
Last thing here before we wrap up, and this is our rapid fire question segment. So we used to do 6, but there was a question last week we had, and I'm adding it because I think it's an awesome question. So we got 7 rapid fire questions. Just simple, first thing that comes to your mind, short answer. You ready?
Yep.
All right, LinkedIn, a great way to network or just another social media app?
I'll say great way to network.
GPA on a resume, leave it on, keep it off.
Don't need it.
Social media accounts, public or private?
Private.
Jeans at work, all day, every day, never, or only on casual Fridays?
All right. So it's never, but I do allow casual Fridays with a jersey.
Okay, very good. Coin toss, heads or tails?
Heads.
You score a touchdown. What's your go-to touchdown celebration?
Act like you've been there before.
Okay, and then final question. You have to compare your job to a flavor of ice cream.
Ooh.
What flavor of ice cream is it?
Oh my God. A flavor of ice cream?
Yes.
I don't know, chocolate mint chip because it's minty, fresh.
Love it. I love it. Baker, thank you so much. We always like to end the program on a high note there with that little segment. So with that, we're gonna wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Before the Snap series today, featuring Baker Koppelman, this SVP of Ticketing with the Baltimore Ravens. Baker, thank you so much for not only doing this program, but truly for everything you've given to the game of football over the illustrious history that you've been involved with it. We have a saying here that the game of football wouldn't be like it is today without our Hall of Famers' impact. And I think that extends to anybody who works in or around the game of football. So truly, thank you everything for you've done for the game, and specifically what you did for us here at the Hall of Fame today.
Happy to do it. Thanks for the opportunity.
As always, if you're watching us today, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all those social media words to all of our channels here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Going to have some great stuff coming out. Tune into the Ravens socials as well. See all the great things that they're doing there in Baltimore, not only on but off the field. Next program, we got a little bit of a break. Got about a month off. We know some people are going to be doing some testing and some fall breaks are coming up. So our next program is going to be on October 24th with Deja Stallings, the Community Engagement and Legends Coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks. So we're headed out to the West Coast again for our next program. So for everybody who tuned in today, thank you so much. We hope you learned a little bit more about what it takes to have a career in and around the game of football, and we hope to see you next time we're here. Bye.